Alrighty, y'all, welcome back to another video, and this one is going to be a fun one because what we're going to be doing is we are going to be improving Aya. We're going to be making sure that she's getting better, smarter, and to do that, what I first want to do is kind of show you guys what a lot of people do whenever they try to improve their LLMs and why it may not be the best technique. So I'm on the prompt template here, and I'm just going to take this and open it in the playground, because instead of that question variable, I want to give Aya some other questions. Now, we already tested it with a very simple HTML question. Now, let's go ahead and test Aya with a Python question. So I'll say, what's the problem with this? And then I'll just go ahead and make a simple print statement. I'll print out, hey. However, I will remove that second quotation mark, and we'll see if Aya can pick up on this bug right here. Okay, looks like you're missing the second quotation mark. Perfect. Now let me give it a JavaScript related issue. So I'll say var equals 3, and actually let me remove that semicolon too. So got a couple issues here. Well, first of all, it should be var something, a variable name. And then of course it doesn't need to have that semicolon, but it's nice. And okay. So we see that Aya has some issues right here. First of all, I was kind of giving this as a JavaScript example, and she didn't know it was JavaScript. I mean, thinking back, how could she? She thought it was Python, so she definitely didn't get that missing semicolon. Now, how would I tweak this so she answered the question correctly? So let me remove that response in, oh, I know. I can say you are a JavaScript AI coding assistant. Your job is to help people with programming questions. Let's see if we can get some better results this way. Oh, there we go. So I added the variable name and also added the missing semicolon. Okay, good job, Aya. But you know what? I just added this JavaScript keyword, so it probably isn't going to do that great for Python and HTML anymore. So let me remove that. And now it's not going to be great at JavaScript. Okay, so already I'm noticing a couple things. One, whenever I say, is Aya getting better or worse, it's a little bit tricky because the question itself is vague. Now, whenever your LLM is getting better or worse, it typically is getting better in some areas and worse in other areas. Now, aside from that ambiguity, I am also noticing that this entire method of testing, it isn't very scientific. I mean, I'm pretty much just asking random questions, and I'm trying to keep track in my head of, is this better or is this worse? Nothing's quantifiable, everything's subjective, and it's just it feels messy off the bat. So let me go ahead and show you a much better way to approach these kind of problems. Now, let me go ahead and click on evaluate just so we have a nice clean page to look at. And now let's go ahead and talk through some of the flaws we had in our logic. So whenever the video first started, I said that the goal was for us to improve Aya or to make Aya better. But already that thought is a little bit subjective, because what do I mean by better? Do I mean that Aya is going to be giving shorter responses? Or do I mean that by better, Aya feels more like I'm talking to a human? Or do I mean that it's just giving more accurate responses, just answering the questions correctly? So I need to define better. Now, whenever we are developing LLM applications, what we do is we need to assess a certain behavior at a time. And that means instead of using vague terms like better, we need to give it a more clear indicator of what we're assessing. So instead of me saying I want to make Aya better, instead what we can do in this example is we can say I want to make Aya better at answering common programming questions, fixing easy programming bugs. That's a lot more quantifiable, something that we can actually test. Now, once we have that clarified, the next thing we have to figure out is how can we test this? And believe it or not, the way that we test this for an LLM is very similar to how we would test if we were a teacher and we were testing if a student is getting smarter or dumber. It sounds kind of mean, but how we would do that is we would basically give them a test, and then over time we can see if their test scores were going up or down. So we're going to be doing the same thing with Aya. We're going to be creating a test and seeing if she's doing better or worse on it. So now let me go ahead and pop open a spreadsheet and I'll show you guys the structure of how we're going to set up this test. So what we're going to be doing is we are first going to be creating some type of question, and we're going to ask it something like we did before. Let me just pop in a quick example here. I'll say, what's wrong with this? And then we're going to be giving it some code. Let me just throw a little issue here. And then in the next column, we'll just have the answer, and I'll say bad closing tag. So I'm sure you guys can see where this is going. In this test, we are actually going to have a lot of question and answers, probably like 10 of them. And the question, what we're going to be doing with that is we are going to be throwing that into this prompt template, and we're going to be sending it to the LLM. Now, when we get our response back, actually, let me say LLM response, it's going to give us some type of answer right here. In that when we get that answer back as the teacher, we can just go ahead and see if it's right or if it's the wrong answer. If it's the right answer, if it's the right answer, we'll just go ahead and give it a score of 1. If it's the wrong answer, we'll give it a score of 0. And that's basically our test. The more questions that Aya gets right, the more points she gets. The more points she gets, the smarter she's becoming. And it's pretty much it. The same way that you would test a kid. Like I said, we're going to test Aya the same way and really gamify the whole experience. Now, before this video, what I actually did is I went and saved some time and I created a bunch of these questions and answers. Again, these are just very simple programming questions. They usually just have a typo or a missing semicolon or something. And again, that's the behavior that we want to assess. The ability to answer common or easy programming questions. And I'll go through each of these one by one real quick. There's just 10 of them. It seems kind of tedious, but we're going to be working with the same data set a lot. So it's important you understand the questions because then the responses are going to make a lot more sense. So this first thing is just the HTML question. You got a bad closing tag. This second one is just this JavaScript question where the semicolon's missing. The third one is just printing out hello world, but it's missing those ending quotation marks. Now this fourth one is React code. However, instead of the rendering the hello component, I just had a typo and I called it Jello. So this fifth one right here, this is just some Django code. Just instead of model, it says schmodel. So that's the issue with that. This SQL code right here is using 2 equal signs when it should use 1. For this one, it's just Python code. However, it's missing the colon right here. After the for loop, there should be a colon. Now this JavaScript function, this console log is not supposed to be included in this function body. And there's also the function body never closes. So that's another issue. This is SQL code 2, but instead of order by, there's a little typo. It says ordery by. And the last question that we're going to be testing is some CSS code. We can see that in this color property, there's supposed to be a semicolon here, and it's just missing. So either way, just a very simple 10 question test. And from here, what I want to do is I just want to download it. So I'm going to download it as a CSV, and then I just want to upload it to Prompt Layer. So back in Prompt Layer, what I'm going to do is over in the Evaluate tab, if I click New Batch Run, then what I like to do is I like to name my batch runs or my tests basically the same as my data set, just because I think it's I don't know, easy to keep things organized that way. So my data set is named Programming Bugs Easy. So here I'm just going to call it Programming Bugs Easy. And now to upload this data set, I'm going to click this button right here. And you are going to see that I already have a data set in here. And that's because I just recorded this video. However, for some reason, my software, the video and the audio got like mismatched. And anyways, moral of the story, I had to re-record it, which I'm doing right now. So I'll show you guys how to upload the data set that we just created. If you click Create Dataset, then you could upload that CSV file. just go ahead and select it here and then choose your CSV file, hit open. And for the dataset name, I'm just going to name it Programming Bugs Easy Dataset. And I'll say dataset 2 because I already have a dataset name, that name. Create one, and now I can select it and just say select dataset. And now last but not least, I'm going to hit create pipeline, and you can see that we now in prompt layer have a view that's very similar to this spreadsheet. However, since it's in prompt layer now, we get a lot of extra functionality. So from here, what I want to do next is I want to add that other column that's going to be responsible for making that LLM request. And it's going to be doing it using our prompt template. So let me go ahead and add another column by clicking this add step button. And I'm going to be making it a prompt template column. And then I just need to give it a name. I'm going to name the column LLM response. And then I need to choose what prompt template I'm going to be using. And of course, we only have one, so very easy decision. And I just always want to use the latest version. So by version, I'm going to select default, and that's going to always use the latest version of the prompt template. And now the last thing that this is saying is, hey, in your prompt template, you have a variable called question. Now, whenever I'm going through, which of these columns do you want me to plug in for that question? And of course, it's the question column. So then we're just going to map that question column to the question variable. And now I'm going to hit run step. And what's going to happen is I believe we're going to get some errors, and I'll show you why we are getting them and how to fix them. And all right, so it says that there's an error. Please select LLM provider and engine none found. So what does this mean? Well, let's go ahead and open our template again. And it is in here, University AI Assistant, and check it out. So right now, we already know that we want to make an LLM request using this prompt, which we're going to be passing in a question variable. And we already hooked it up to say that this is the question that you're going to be using first, and then use this one, so on and so forth. Looks like everything is good to go. But what we never specified to prompt layer is which LLM provider are we using? Are we using OpenAI? Are we using Anthropic? Are we using another one? So on and so forth. Now, there are two different ways that we can configure this. The first way is we can configure on a per column basis. So anytime we run this column, if we click this edit button, and we can set the model engine parameters here. So if I just want to say, yes, I want to use OpenAI with this model, I can go ahead and save that. However, I don't like doing it this way. Instead, what I like doing is I like saving the type of provider and model I'm going to be using directly on my prompt template. So how do I do that? Well, if I go ahead and edit this prompt template, then right here where it says parameters, I can go ahead and choose set parameters. And then I'll just stick with this right now, OpenAI, GPT 3.5 Turbo, those look good. Now I'm going to go ahead and just update my template to make sure those parameters are set. And now back in my report, all I need to do is really just rerun this. And now hopefully, if everything went good, since I have my parameters tied to my prompt template, now it knows to use OpenAI. So now let's see whenever it makes this request. So now you see we start to get some answers back, and let's go ahead and take a quick peek. All right, error in your HTML code, that looks good. Nothing technically wrong, still think it's Python code, but that's all right. All right, so this preview is looking good so far. I got everything configured how I want it. The only thing that I want to do before I kick off the full run, again, right now it's only doing the first 4 while I get everything configured, but when I click this, it's going to do the full 10. Before I do that, I want to add one more column so we can actually score these answers. So I'm going to add another column. And since it's just going to be me looking at the answers and manually giving it a score, I'm going to choose human input. And then I'm going to click next. And then for this column, I'm just going to say score. And for the data type, it's just going to be a number. Again, 0 for wrong, 1 for right. And I'll just say text box. It's the easiest thing. So I'm just going to save this. And now I can go ahead and enter whatever number I want. And there you go. So this is all good right now. And yeah, from here, just go ahead and hit run full batch. And then that's going to go ahead and run your full test suite. So after a couple seconds, you see that our full test is now populated, and then Aya is going to be figuring out these answers. And I'll give her some time, and it will be just a few seconds, but I'll give her a few more. All right, now after a couple seconds, you see that Aya has now responded with all her answers. And what I'm going to do now is pretty much just go through like I'm a teacher grading a test. Just look at her answers, and if it's right, give her a 1. If it's wrong, give her a 0. And I'll do about like 2 or 3 of these, and then I'll pause the video so you don't have to watch me do each one. So the first one, closing tag. Okay. And it also says the title tag is missing, but I don't think it was. Missing the closing title tag. No, it wasn't, was it? Okay, so she got like I don't know, that's just like kind of got it, so I'll give her half a point for that. Let's see what else. In this one, nothing wrong, but if you want to follow convention, you should add semicolons. Okay, that one's right. And let's see, this last one, quotation mark, she got that one right, so that's another 1. And yeah, so I'm basically just going to go through the rest of these. I'll pause the video now, and at the end of it, I'll let you know the final score. Alright, so I just finished grading the test, and once I added the last value here, Prompt Layer updated the average score, so we can see that Aya got an 85% out of 100. She missed this first one, where she said that there was no closing title or head tag, and in fact there were. And also another React one where she said to import something from somewhere, but it actually was the correct import. So either way, we got a score of 85. Not too bad, but I have a feeling that we could do some prompt engineering and make this a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my template right here, and I'm going to edit it. And how about we do something like this? You're an AI coding assistant. You are the best programmer in the world. And another thing that I want to change is before we were using 3.5 Turbo. Let's go ahead and see if GPT-4 is any better. So now I made some changes to this. I'm going to go ahead and update my template. I don't need a commit message. Now here, what I want to do is, since I updated my template and I want to test it out on that same test that we built, I'm going to go ahead and select this. Do you want to run an evaluation? Basically, do you want to run a test? And for this, I'm going to select the one that we just made, Programming Bugs Easy. So now I'm going to go ahead and confirm this. And when I do, you can see if I hover over my latest version, the updates that we just made, I have this little link to an eval report. And if I click that, you can see that the updated test is now running. Well, in fact, it's the same test, just with the updated prompt template. And that brings me to another point, which is whenever you are evaluating a prompt template, what you want to make sure of is you're using a consistent test. And the reason for that is because in this experiment, you already have one of the variables changing, which is the prompt template itself. Now, if you are also changing it by giving it new test questions every time, your experiment isn't going to be very scientific. You're basically testing too much data, or in other words, what's the reason why the system is either improving or not improving. So now it looks like Aya V2, let's call her, finished answering this test. So now let me go ahead and score it and see if she did any better. All right, and check it out. This time, after our adjustments, it does indeed look like Aya improved. She now had a perfect score. All right, so off the bat, it feels like this process is indeed better than just using the playground and trying to keep track of everything in your head and not being too scientific. However, there's still some things in this process that feel a little bit tedious. First of all, me going through and scoring each of these one by one, I mean, honestly, it's taken a little bit of time. It's kind of annoying. And imagine if I have a bigger data set with 100 or 1,000 cases. and I have a bunch of different prompt templates that I want to test. I mean, I'm going to get carpal tunnel in no time having to do this. So I need to figure out a better way where I can actually score these responses. And in addition to that, another thing that I was thinking is, check this out. So before I just go ahead and release this to thenewboston.com and let people start typing in any answer, or excuse me, any question that they want, I want to think about this from a user's perspective. So they're going to be on my website and they're going to be watching a video, and what are they going to be typing in? A lot of the time they're going to be typing in questions like we just saw, programming related questions, so on and so forth. But let's say that they're watching the video of me teaching how to make beer or how to build a go-kart. They could also ask questions like who is the dude in this video? And well, it may seem obvious, just, detect who's in the video and see, but from Aya's perspective, whenever she is embedded here, she has no idea that she's on a web page. She has no idea that there's a video right here or anything like that. So she's not going to be able to respond to that question just because she doesn't have the context necessary. Now, another thing is, if we just put ourselves in the user's shoes again, they are going to be talking to a chatbot. So they may ask some questions which they think is a simple question like, what is your name? And of course, we know her name is Aya. I mean, I already said that in the other video, and here you can see it says Aya on the left, but for her, her response would be, as an AI, I don't have a personal name, and we know that's not really true either. So it seems like, yes, we are getting better, but there's still some kinks that we have to work out, and in the next videos, we're going to be taking a look at how to solve those problems. But for now, thank you guys for watching, and we can subscribe, and I'll see you next time.